Hey, in today's video, I'm gonna tell you how to avoid going through the ugly stage of dreadlocks. Hey guys, I really feel like I'm going through the ugly stage. Although I always say that, like, obviously the ugly is really what you make of it. It's really kind of a perception, but I'm gonna talk about that later on in today's video. And I know that so many people go through this stage where they're like, man, should I keep these? And they're kind of torn between the two. And I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I feel what you guys feel. Like 100%, I go through the same things with whatever it is, even if it's just normal life or even just what we're talking about today, hair. So today is a change of pace. I'm not doing any tutorials or anything like that. I am going to speak about how to avoid going through the ugly stage and kind of how it contradicts what I'm doing. And it might even contradict with what you're doing. So make sure to stay tuned. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you guys are new for dreadlock content. So when coming up for the idea of this video, I thought of one major idea and when do people usually go through the ugly stage, or when am I going through the ugly stage, or when can you expect to go through the ugly stage? And I use that phrase very lightly. And if you hear me say ugly stage, I mean it in like a quotation style of wording, because I don't think anybody's hair is ugly. I don't think anybody's ugly. And if you personally think that your hair is ugly, it's going to be hard for you to want to keep it. So try to do your best to get out of that mindset. And hopefully this video actually helps you get out of that mindset, because not only is it a perception, but also there's ways to avoid it. But when do people typically go through the ugly stage, or when can you expect to go through that stage? And for all of you who are wondering, the ugly stage is kind of like when the dreadlocks are short. Just take a look at my hair. This is what we like to call the ugly stage. So with that being said, it's when the hair is typically short, it's kind of frizzy, it's not mature. Mature is when the hair actually hardens up and locks up. My hair isn't completely locked, if it's locked at all. But when can you expect to go through it? And if you are going through it, why are you going through it? So with going to the ugly stage, like I said, your hair is not fully mature. So your hair is less than quite a few things. So typically you go through the ugly stage when your hair is less than 6 inches long. And the reason being is because when your hair is over 6 inches, your hair is completely easier to actually lock up. And believe it or not, if you do the math correctly, everybody's hair grows about 6 inches a year. And if you put 2 and 2 together, dreadlocks typically fully mature in an entire year. And of course, there's little maturing here and there after the year mark, but after a year of growing dreadlocks, they usually reach full maturity. And what I mean by full maturity is that they're hard, they've shrunk as much as they possibly can, because during the locking stage, there is shrinkage, and that's just to be expected, because essentially dreadlocks are just compressed curls locking into each other. So with your hair being less than 6 inches actually leads me on to the next point of, is if your dreadlocks are under a year old, they typically are still going through that stage. So, and these are just things that are to be expected. Like, it's best to expect them and understand that they're coming, or it's just good to know that you're going through this process. So instead of calling it the ugly stage, just call it the locking process. And one thing that I found out, and this kind of just leads into the perception, is that many people don't even think that you're going through the ugly stage. When they see your hair, they just think, you know, that's hair. Now, if you're pursuing dreadlocks and you're going through the locking process, you're having a different experience, because you're spending more time actually with your hair, if I could put it that way, or you're spending time doing your hair, and you're paying a lot of attention to your actual locks. When other people, they just see you and they see you for being you. So it's more of a perception. Now, alongside your hair being less than 6 inches and not a year old, there's most likely 3 things that you're avoiding that are actually preventing your hair from reaching full maturity. Because believe it or not, there's actually ways to reach full maturity in less than 6 inches of hair and less than a year. So typically if you see people going through the ugly stage, it's because they're not crochet hooking their hair. Now, if you see me, I'm not crochet hooking my hair at all. That's why you see my hair looking the way that it is, going through the ugly stage or the locking process. Because there's actually ways to speed up the locking process. You can lock your hair up completely in less than 24 hours using the crochet hook. So that's what I'm saying. If you're not using the crochet hook, and say you're doing a method just like me, doing twisting with gel, or if you're doing any method that isn't an instant locking method, which is only 2 instant locking methods, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. Like, say you're not doing crochet hooking or you're not doing interlocking, you're gonna have to go through the locking process. Now, of course, if you are crochet hooking your hair or you're interlocking the hair, you're still gonna have to go through that process, but it's way quicker. And last but not least, the last thing that you're not doing that's preventing your hair from maturing is you're not freeforming. Freeforming has a different take of the locking process or the ugly stage, because the hair is actually taking a form of its own versus you actually seeing that they're trying to do something. Like, say someone twists their hair and you're like, oh, I understand they're getting dreadlocks. Or say yourself, you twisted your hair and you're like, these don't look like dreadlocks. And of course they don't, because they're still going through the locking process. And that's the cool thing about freeform dreadlocks, is that whole time it's kind of caught in the between of dreadlocks in your hair's natural form. So say you have a 3B hair type or maybe a 4B hair type. Whatever hair type you have and you're free-forming, during that process, it's just a slow progression of getting into dreadlocks. And just so all of you guys know what freeform dreadlocks are, it's just essentially washing the hair and allowing it to lock up on its own. Because believe it or not, everybody's hair naturally wants to lock up, even straight hair. That's why people comb their hair, that's why people pick their hair out, that's why they do hairstyles and other things so that their hair doesn't tangle. Because dreadlocks are essentially just your hair tangling up over and over and over again in sections. Now obviously if you're going freeform, then it's tangling up in all kinds of different ways, in the ways that it actually naturally will form. So yeah, that's when to expect the ugly stage of the locking process to actually happen. Is less than 6 inches long of dreadlocks, less than a year, which kind of goes hand in hand because your hair everybody's hair typically grows about 6 inches a year. With that being said, your hair grows about 1/2 inch a month. And people always try to say you can grow your hair faster, you can grow your hair slower, and so on and so forth. And it's kind of hit or miss. And if you are growing your hair faster, I mean, it's probably going to be anywhere like maybe less than a centimeter. So is it really even worth trying or even doing? I don't think it's worth it. Now there are ways to actually benefit your hair growth, and I would say promote hair growth. It's not necessarily making it grow quicker or faster. It's just keeping your scalp very healthy and your hair healthy. So I don't think there's actually ways to actually make your hair grow faster, but I think there's ways for your hair to actually stunt its growth. And if you do your best to prevent the stunting of your hair growth, then your hair will actually grow at a normal pace. And that's one thing that people don't really tell you. They just say that you can speed up your hair growth. All they're telling you is to stop doing this, and then it promotes your hair growth. But that's like a whole other story. We're going to talk about right now how to actually avoid going to the ugly stage, because it is possible to actually avoid even having to go through it. I'll start out with this. If you want to avoid the ugly stage right off the bat, then I would recommend to start your dreadlocks when your hair is actually longer than maybe 5 to maybe even 6 inches. Because with that, your hair doesn't typically get as frizzy or kind of messy or even go through the ugly stage when your hair is longer than 6 inches. Because when your hair is shorter, maybe at about 3, or even how my hair is like about 3 inches long, maybe even a little bit longer, maybe 4 inches. The hair doesn't want to go into the dreadlock. And obviously it's different for every hair type. Say you have a 4C hair type and your hair is 4 inches long, then go ahead and start them out, because your hair actually has a tighter curl pattern, which it coils up better, and then it'll hold into the sections a whole lot better. Now if your hair is straight, then you definitely want to wait until your hair is about 6 inches, unless you want your hair to just be, standing up on top of your head. And a lot of people with the straighter hair type, even from the hair type of 1 all the way to even 3A, if they start their dreadlocks below 6 inches, where there's not enough weight or there's not enough allowed maturity, their hair typically wants to just stand straight up. And then that's what they call the ugly stage, because everybody has a different ugly stage or a different locking process. And the answer to that is just wait until your hair is over 6 inches long. Like grow your hair out for a year and then start the locking process. But I'm not going to force you to. If you want to start already, go ahead and do it. Anybody can. But obviously it's going to be really hard to actually start locks if your hair is less than 1 inch or anywhere in there, if you have a straighter hair type. But if you do want more information on hair types, and you can actually figure out your own hair type and when to actually start locking up your hair and what methods to use, you can click the link down below that says what is my hair type, and it literally breaks every single thing down from the hair type to what method works best for your hair type and how long your hair should actually be to actually start dreadlocks with your hair type. But how can you avoid the ugly stage? You really can't, like simply put, but there are ways. Like I said, you can use crochet hooking, you can use interlocking, and my favorite of all is just wear a hat. And it's one of those things to where it's out of sight and out of mind. I wear hats quite a bit, especially when I'm going out, but at the same time, I try to embrace it as much as possible. Because if I'm gonna go through this process, I don't wanna keep hiding it and then just have hat hair all the time when I take the hat off, because there are places that I go, like church, that I don't want to wear a hat to. Or say I'm going to class, I don't want to wear my hat to class. So I don't want to get too used to wearing a hat, because there are places that I go that I don't wear them. But like I said earlier, you can crochet hook the hair. Alexa, I'm not talking to you.
Connecting to the internet.
So as I said earlier, the crochet hook method actually helps out a whole lot with preventing the ugly stage, because all you're doing is instantly locking up the hair. I actually did a video not too long ago of me creating, if you guys know Activerse on YouTube, I created his dreadlocks in under 5 hours using a crochet hook. All of his dreadlocks. I know he has over 70 dreadlocks, on his head, but I did it all with a crochet hook. And with his hair type, we could have easily did more sections and did well over even 200 dreadlocks on his head. But we did that all under 5 hours, and we could have did over 200 in less than 24 hours, I'm sure. But all it took is taking time to crochet hook the hair, and we instantly locked it up. And before I actually did his hair, he was going through somewhat of an ugly stage because he had his hair twisted. And then I just went in and did all the crochet hooking. So that's really the best way to actually avoid going through it, because the best thing is you're not covering it up like using a hat and to where you have to deal with it later. You're literally just taking care of it. It's kind of like taking vitamins versus taking a painkiller. It literally takes away that entire locking process, and you're able to just have dreadlocks immediately. Now, of course, there's people out there that want to go through the locking process like myself. I want to actually endure through it, because with my first set of locks, I did so much maintenance to it. I did all kinds of different things like sponge rub, towel rub, twisting with gel, crochet hooking, interlocking. I did so much to my first set of locks to where this time I actually just want to go through the locking process and kind of enjoy it and learn to enjoy it. And that's what a lot of people actually choose to do, is they want to learn how to enjoy the locking process, and they learn a lot from it. So overall, it is a perception, and if I could be really honest with you guys, just love yourself all the time, no matter what, and that includes loving your hair through every single stage. And one of the greatest things you can have during the locking process is to be patient. I love the saying that patience is a virtue, because it really is. If you have patience, then you really can deal with everything. But what do I actually do to go through the ugly stage? I embrace it. Like I said, I wear a hat, and the biggest thing is I just let it go. Like, I'm dealing with my hair. This is what's going on, and this is the process that I want to go on, and I just have to let it go and just deal with it. And in the long run, they're going to turn out just fine. So that's kind of my in-game picture, is in a year from now, I'm not even going to worry about this, or I'm not even going to think about it. And what's really going to be cool is a year from now, I'm going to be able to look back and say, man, my dreadlocks look like that, or what I thought was dreadlocks at the time looked like that, and then now they look so much better. And it's just a locking process, not an ugly stage. But you guys, hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you got a lot out of it, make sure to leave a comment down below, and also subscribe if you guys are new. But other than that, guys, hopefully you guys do have an amazing day. Matter of fact, have a great day. Peace and God bless.